and gentlemen, you welcome to this edition of the 6 p.m. prime time newscast on Équinoxe Television, live from our headquarters in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. I am Babla Jonathan. In our top stories in this edition of the news, at least 2 persons have been killed by an explosion in Bonaberi, Douala 4 subdivision. The incident occurred last night, and in the far north region of the Republic of Cameroon, the election of a third-class chief for Mudu Giziga village in the Diamare division turned violent, and the divisional officer of the locality of Mary subdivision was almost beaten to death by the population. We'll bring to you details in this newscast. And out of the country, a spokesperson of the Ivorian government says there are plans to release associates of opposition leader Guillaume Soro. A deadly explosion has killed at least 2 persons, leaving 2 others severely injured in Bonaberi, Douala 4 subdivision. The incident occurred last night. Details in this report compiled by Fomi Armstrong Zanda. We'll be coming back to that report in a short while. Time for us to talk about the election of a third-class chief in the Mudu Giziga village in the Diamare division, far north region of the Republic of Cameroon. The election turned violent, and the protesters, notably inhabitants of the locality, almost executed jungle justice on the divisional officer of Mary division who was there to supervise the election of the third-class chief. Details with Innocent.
Since 2012, the third-class chiefdom of Munduru Giziga has been vacant since the demise of Buba Abdullah Kai, who reigned from 1960 to 2012, leaving behind sons and grandsons. 8 years after, the locals are to be given a successor by administrative authorities from the 3 candidates vying for the chiefdom. The first, Ajumakai, is son of the deceased. Second, Ariam Bile, grandson of the late third-class chief. And the third, Njida Buba, rebuked by the population who say do not know him.
In reality, the candidate does not have the royal blood. Authorities want to impose us the candidate because of his wealth. He has corrupted them with money. The law stipulates that all candidates must be from the royal family.
Tous les candidats doivent être issus de la famille royale. Non à la corruption, nous ne connaissons pas.
No to corruption. We do not know the third candidate. We know nothing about him, not even his parents and grandparents. Government should respect the laws which have governed us.
On joué ce rôle dans l'arrondissement de mairie et là, aucun de sa famille a régné dans Munduru Giziga.
Il voulait nous imposer.
That the divisional officer for Meri wants to impose them the third candidates, not from the royal family.
C'est pour cela que nous avons contesté ces élections.
Because of this corruption, the population refused taking part in the voting, adding that the laws are being defied by the divisional officer, Yaya Ali, presiding over the ceremony.
Nous voulons que les candidats reconnus soient.
We want the eligible candidate to be the 2 sons of the late chief. If only both of them are contesting, then we will vote, even if we are summoned at midnight. But if a third candidate is taking part, we won't vote.
Celui-là ne va pas régner à Munduru.
Attempts to move on with the elections with the third candidates not excluded, the over 3,000 inhabitants rioted to disrupt the ceremony. Defense and security forces present could not contain the situation. Voting materials were destroyed, ballot boxes scattered. Yaya Ali, the divisional officer for Mary Subdivision, was shielded from being harmed by the angry population.
Non à la corruption, non à la dictature.
And concerning Tuesday's anti-government protests in Yaoundé, Douala and other parts of the country orchestrated by the CRM political party, the Popular Action Party and other political institutions in the country, Dr. Nick Ngwanyam kicks against his comrades of the Cameroon People's Democratic Movement, CPDM political party, who said the protest was a huge failure. He explains why he thinks otherwise. Take a listen.
You know, I have been following up media commentaries, social media and television. People say, oh, it was a failure, it was a flop. Some others say it was a success. But what I want to tell everybody is this, for those of you who did the sciences, is that when you carry out an experiment, you define the conditions under which the experiments were carried out, and you can only interpret the results when you keep in mind what was happening in the ambient environment. Now, if you carry out a chemical reaction at 24 degrees centigrade, the results are different from carrying out the very chemical reaction at 10 degrees centigrade. What was the ideal conditions for the march? The ideal conditions for the march would have been that, you know, if the military and the police came over and they just stood around the roads, just like they did in Bamenda sometimes when the Anglophones were marching, you saw the Anglophones march. Many of them came out in their numbers and marched, and they were the police by them and the army did not brutalize the people. You saw that the people came out and expressed themselves, and actually at the end of the day, the people felt kind of like respected. And if we had continued in that vein, actually the Anglophone problem would have been solved. But here we are. You know, the question we should be asking, did the people stay back at home because of intimidation, or they stayed back at home because they didn't like what Kamto was saying? You know, those are the two questions we ought to be asking. And therefore, to say that Kamto failed, or the march failed, or this happened, you know, or make a mockery, you know, you can't draw those conclusions, because the right conditions were not available, and what we should be looking for is peace in the country, and not making a mockery of each other. Making a mockery of each other makes a bad situation worse. Whether he succeeded or not, let's answer this question and see how we can make our country go forward, how we can grow the level of happiness in our country, and how we can grow the level of participation in our country. In the next season, it is the progressive CPDM that will take over, because the opposition have had the opportunity of doing something in the nation if they could come together. There are so many of them, 350 of them, so that's why there's disorder. But if they could agree on basic things and come together, they would change the system. But because they cannot agree to come together, what is going to happen is that it is the progressive CPDM that will take over in the next season. And for that progressive CPDM to succeed, they will have to copy all the best ideas from all the 350 political parties that we have. I said the best ideas, and those best ideas are not more than 10. And then implement all those ideas, and that will be the end of opposition, that will be the growth of Cameroon, and we will just have to walk together like the Chinese and will grow.
Dr. Nick Ngwanyam speaking there. Now back to Bonaberi, Douala 4 subdivision, where at least 2 persons were killed by an explosion last night. Those who were injured, or the injured victims, are said to be responding to treatment in hospital, where a gendarmerie investigation is underway to establish the exact cause of the explosion. For me, Armstrong Sander finds in details.
The explosion Wednesday night, September 23rd, 2020, caused a commotion across Petrolex and surrounding neighborhoods in Bonaberi, Douala 4 subdivision.
I'm Pastor Chris Motake, and I'm a pastor with Faith Bible Church. Wednesday evening, while we were in church, we had a meeting, and about 7 p.m. in the evening, we had a mega sound, you know, as an explosion of something. And we thought that it was a bomb that was thrown at the church, because the impact was really heavy on the church. With the size of the hall, you know, the echo, the sound was really huge, and everybody was just so afraid. So when we looked out, we saw people running. And so when I came down, I noticed that the louvers of the window were completely shattered, destroyed. Everything was on the ground. And, you know, part of the wall of the building got cracked. And even the louvers upstairs equally got broken. Then the ceiling of one little building that is just beside the church came out of place. And so when this morning
2 persons were killed and others severely wounded, according to elements of the Army Rescue Unit.
On a retrouvé 2 corps.
We met 2 dead bodies. According to sources from the gendarmerie that came before us, 6 persons are directly involved in this accident. 2 have been taken to the gendarmerie brigade in Bojongo, 2 who died and 1 that has been rushed to the hospital. The deceased are Calvin Tapazu, Mr. Ndifo, and Mr. Tampe Pri Daniel that has been rushed to the hospital.
Calvin Tapazo qui est décédé, Monsieur Ndifo décédé, et puis Monsieur Tampe Pri Daniel qui a été évacué avant notre arrivée.
Locals say Calvin, one of the deceased and a welder by profession, was working on the tanker when it exploded.
When I went to check on what happened, we realized that it was a welder, you know, who is somebody who is doing welding just beside the church. He was working on a tanker that, you know, carried fuel. But we were told that the fuel was emptied, but they did not open it for the air to evaporate. So while he was working, the explosion, you know, happened, and that's it.
Elements of the National Gendarmerie at Bojongo have launched an investigation to determine the exact circumstances that led to the unfortunate incident.
The Supreme Court has cancelled the election of the city mayor of Kumba in the Meme Division, Southwest region of the Republic of Cameroon. This verdict comes on the heels of a petition filed after the election, which took place on the 3rd of March 2020, and also the election of the mayor of Makenene has equally been cancelled. Those elections will be taken over, and of course the petitions are still being heard at the Supreme Court as we speak. Now we're going to take you to the south region of the Republic of Cameroon, where Immaculate Fogwe takes a look at the difficult situation in which refugees from neighboring countries are living, and they are now being assisted by the United Nations Development Program to be able to put food on their table, to provide for their needs, or their basic needs. Details in this report.
Refugee women in Ganga Salari in the south region of Cameroon being imparted on basic skills on how to make gari and powder detergent. After being trained, I am now able to make gari and soap. I will be able to sell some of it while the rest will be used at home. The project, launched by the United Nations Development Program (UNDP), aims at impacting these refugee women with innovative skills that will better their lives. We taught them how to make gari and soap. We trained them on some farming techniques. The training is meant to empower them. We offered them the necessary equipment. We chose these set of women because they are vulnerable, so we wanted to help them. The project is meant to support the affected population whose activities have been crippled by the current health crisis.
Education ministers in the Republic of Cameroon have said they have taken all necessary measures to prevent the spread of coronavirus in schools as the next school year draws near. The ministers of basic, secondary and higher education were speaking during the September cabinet meeting today. During the video conference meeting chaired by Prime Minister Chief Dr. Joseph Jangote, the education ministers highlighted social distancing quarantine measures, wearing of masks, and sanitation measures taken to keep the learners, teachers, and school officials saved from the coronavirus. Academic activities will resume 5th October 2020 for primary and secondary schools in Cameroon, and October 15 for universities and other higher institutions of learning in the country. In the Northwest region, Governor Adolphe Lele Lafrique has reassured the pupils, students, teachers, and school officials that all security and sanitation measures have been taken to ensure a hitch-free back to school and an effective and safe back to school or academic year 2020-2021. He was speaking today in Bamenda. Now, here in the economic capital, Douala, members of the Chamber of Commerce, Mines, Industry, and of course craft are discussing the institution's efforts to enhance activities of business persons in different sectors in the Republic of Cameroon. They are meeting in the first statutory meeting for the 2020-2023 mandate. The meeting started today and was chaired by the Minister of Mines, Industry and Technological Development, Gabriel Dodo Ndoke. Now take a listen to the Minister and the new President of the Chamber of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Craft, Christophe Eke.
Installed today will deal challenges which will get the professionals of the sector of trade to grow, to make their business grow. As I said, is an instance where professionals come to seek solution for the problem of exploitation of their business. It's not an instance where one come to seek or to hope to have money for starting. Yes, we can get money to start our activity, but we more need for them to come and seek solutions to their problems, to help them to go ahead with what they have started to do.
But you know, today we are living a very difficult economic situation due to the COVID also. I will say that more than 80% of the business companies are affected. Most of them are in the, what I can say is a bankruptcy situation, you know. It's very difficult. What we are going to do is to help and supervise many companies in this country. So I say we need grants, we need, we can say subsidies also to do more than what we have done today.
The new president of the Chamber of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Craft, Christophe Eke, was commissioned into his functions by Minister Gabriel Dodo Ndoke of the Ministry of Mines, Industry and Technological Development today. And on the sidelines of that ceremony, we spoke to some members of the institution, the Chamber of Commerce, Mines or Industry, Mines and Craft, who highlighted some of the challenges that they are facing now. Take a listen to Atanga Matthias Ndikum of the Industry and Construction section and Gaius Bafumbu of the Commerce section.
About taxes, you see, they give you a contract, then you have the value added tax, then air comes in, the trim it, and then would plus the stamps that are put on contracts. It raises it up to a fabulous sum that you cannot even manage up. So these are problems that contractors are facing. And more so, the materials, especially with us in Bamenda, they have become so expensive because of the socio-political problems that we are in, and I think if the government can really do something to subsidize the contractors of the Northwest region, it will be the Northwest and Southwest region, let me say this, it will be advantageous. The Chamber of Commerce being an economic power to influence the government, I think if they can push this ahead, it will actually go to resolve some of the problems that are facing contractors, especially in the two Anglophone regions.
We have a lot of challenges in the commerce section. And this here precisely I will talk about the challenges that has been caused by the pandemic, the health pandemic. Because for a very short time we have witnessed a very high increase in price of commodities from our suppliers, and due to that we are bound to sell to at very high prices, particularly in the region I come from, the Northwest region. We have a challenge of the route network that links the source of most of our material, that is Douala to Bamenda. That route, from the stretch of route from Bawaju to Bamenda, has not been constructed, and for material to leave Douala to Bamenda is very difficult. So we are witnessing the increase in the cost of transportation, and again it costs us to increase the prices, our prices of goods. The crisis too, it has really taken down the economic situation of the region, and really
Cameroon, a spokesperson of the Ivorian government, says there are plans to release associates of opposition leader Guillaume Soro. Sidi Touré did not state the number of persons who will be released, but said that some of them may still face prosecution. Those in detention include Guillaume Soro's relatives and politicians, and of course, quoted by Reuters news agency, government spokesperson Sidi Touré said the plans to release some of the detainees can be appreciated as an additional gesture of appeasement by the head of state Alassane Dramane Ouattara. And it should be noted that Guillaume Soro was accused of plotting a coup against President Alassane Ouattara. He is currently on exile in France. And this is where we end this edition of the news on Équinoxe Television. Thanks for staying with us. Goodbye.